Mr. President. Mr. President, Wells Fargo creates 3.5 million fake accounts charging customers fees and ruining credit scores. Equifax lets hackers steal personal information for 145 million Americans, putting nearly 60% of American adults at risk of identity theft. And somehow, we are about to vote on a Republican proposal that makes it harder for consumers to hold companies like Wells Fargo and Equifax accountable. I know it sounds nuts, but it's true. Here's the issue. If you have a checking account or a credit card or a private student loan or any number of financial products, there's a good chance that you have given up your right to go to court if that financial firm cheats you. And that's because tens of millions of consumer financial contracts include a forced arbitration clause that says that if this financial company cheated you, you can't join with other consumers in court. You have to go to arbitration by yourself. Tens of millions of consumers, including around 80 million credit card customers, can't go to court if their banks cheat them. Now, think about what that means in the real world. You wake up one morning, you find a mysterious $30 fee on your account statement. You call the bank and you say, hey, I didn't agree to this. The bank tells you, pound sand. So what are your options? Well, if there's no forced arbitration clause in your contract, you have a choice. You can go to court, or if your bank offers it, you can pursue arbitration. Now, here's what you want to think about. Chances are pretty good that if the bank cheated you with a $30 unauthorized fee, that there are other customers in the same boat. And that means, if you want, you can join a class action lawsuit against the bank for free. A class action gives you a chance to get some money back, and it doesn't cost you anything. A class action also means the bank might have to cough up some real money and think twice before hitting you and their other customers with hidden fees the next time around. Now think about what happens if there is a forced arbitration clause. You can't join with the other customers in court. Your only option is to file a solo arbitration claim, which will cost you $200 or more just to get started. Who's going to pay $200 up front to try to get back a $30 fee? No one. And that's exactly what the banks are counting on. They can get away with nickel and diming you forever. But say the bank steals a bigger amount, and you just can't stand it anymore, so you decide to be one of the roughly 400 consumers a year to go before an arbitrator. If you don't like the result, there's no appeal. Even worse, the banks are allowed to swipe your wallet in secret. The records of these proceedings are not public, so the regulators and the American people don't get to know what the banks are up to. Does that sound like justice in America? Earlier this year, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau put a stop to that. They issued a new rule that prohibits financial companies from forcing you to give up your right to join other customers in court and hold your bank accountable. House Republicans already voted to reverse that rule. The Senate will soon decide whether to follow suit and take away American families' freedom to choose to go to court if they're cheated by their banks. Now, make no mistake, anyone who votes to reverse this rule is saying loud and clear that they stand with the banks instead of their constituents, because bank lobbyists are the only people asking Congress to reverse this rule. Every other organization, all the ones that represent actual human beings, not banks, every one of them want this rule to be saved. Let me just tell you about some of them. The Military Coalition, which represents more than 5.5 million veterans and service members, supports the CFPB rule because, quote, our nation's veterans should not be deprived of the constitutional rights and freedoms that they put their lives on the line to protect, including the right to have their claims heard in a trial. The coalition says that, quote, Forced arbitration is an un-American system wherein service members' claims against a corporation are funneled into a rigged, secretive system in which all the rules, including the choice of arbitrator, are picked by the corporation. They warn that the catastrophic consequences of these forced arbitration clauses pose for our all-voluntary military fighting forces morale and our national security are vital reasons to preserve the rule. That's from the Military Coalition. The AARP, which represents nearly 40 million seniors, says the CFPB rule should be preserved because, quote, it is a critical step in restoring consumers' access to legal remedies that have been undermined by the widespread use of forced arbitration for many years. Older consumers are often at increased risk of financial scams, so the AARP supports the availability of a full range of enforcement tools, including the right to class action litigation to prevent harm to the financial security of older people posed by unfair and illegal practices. So that's the AARP representing seniors across this country. And the Main Street Alliance, which represents thousands of small businesses, says the CFPB rule will help small businesses fight against big financial firms that try to drive up their fees. Since almost, quote, 20% of small business owners rely on credit cards as a source of investment capital, many of which contain arbitration clauses, forced arbitration makes it nearly impossible for small businesses and consumers to protect forced arbitration makes it nearly impossible for small businesses and consumers alike to protest hidden fees, illegal debt collection, and other deceptive practices. That's from the Small Business Alliance. So there it is, veterans, service members, seniors, small businesses, consumers, all lining up to support the CFPB rule. That's not all. Let Freedom Ring, an organization that proudly touts itself as, quote, supporting the conservative agenda. It likes the CFPB rule too, saying it is in keeping with our framers' concerns that without appropriate protections, civil proceedings can be used as a means to oppress the powerless. You know, that's the thing you have to understand here. The effort to reverse the CFPB rule isn't about promoting a conservative agenda, and it's sure as heck not about promoting a working people's agenda or a small business agenda. It's about advancing a bank's agenda, period. The banks and their lobbyists have actually got the gall to claim that they want to kill the rule because it's bad for their customers. You know, that claim is just plain laughable. According to a rigorous 3-year-long CFPB study, consumers recovered an average of $540 million annually from class action settlements, while they received less than $1 million annually in the arbitration cases that the agency reviewed. Is not even close. And even if there are instances in which arbitration is a better response for consumers than a class action lawsuit, the CFPB rule doesn't stop consumers from choosing arbitration. The rule simply says consumers should have the freedom to go to court if that's what they prefer. I'll tell you one thing. When it comes to what's right for consumers, I listen to service members, veterans, seniors, consumers, small businesses. I don't listen to bank lobbyists. When a bunch of bank lobbyists tell you that they know what's best for consumers, hang on to your wallet. Millions of Americans of all political parties think the game in Washington is rigged against them. And this vote is Exhibit A. Companies like Equifax and Wells Fargo have hurt millions of consumers and then turn around and try to escape accountability using forced arbitration clauses. The Republican Congress hasn't done a thing to help the people hurt by Wells Fargo. The Republican Congress hasn't done a thing to help the people hurt by Equifax. Nope. Instead, tonight, they are actually taking away one of your few legal tools to hold companies like Wells Fargo and Equifax accountable. This is shameful, and I mean that. Any senator who votes against our service members and our veterans in order to shield big banks from accountability should be ashamed. We should vote down this proposal. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield.